Hello, and thank you for checking out the second Wild West Rocks interview. Today we will be talking with Cyndi and Henry from the Cynz. The Cynz being a New York City rock and roll band, actually coming from Jersey, but we will grant them that. But the Cynz are celebrating, I believe, roughly 10 years of making music, 10 years of making rock and roll, which is pretty awesome. That just, 10 years is a long time doing anything, and 10 years of making rock and roll is especially cool. In addition, so they'll be talking about that. In addition, they'll be talking about making music in the age of COVID, in the age of this pandemic that we're dealing with. So that is also a challenge for everybody, including musicians. But the Cynz, they before the pandemic, you could routinely find the Cynz playing in New York. They were routinely playing the Lower East Side venues. You could find them at the Bowery Electric. You could find them they were at the Sidewalk routinely, and just a range of other places. They were just routinely playing. You can also find them, they have 2 albums plus, so they have quite a bit of material over the last 10 years. You can find them on iTunes. You can find them on Spotify, the usual places, Reverb Nation. They're on Facebook, of course. And one thing to keep in mind, if you want to type them into your browser, Cynz is spelled Cynz. But without ado, here they are, Cyndi and Henry.
How are you folks making out today? Both as a band and just as getting through all this. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Bob, during these COVID days, we've been mostly writing. There's not a lot of gigs out there. We did a streaming gig down at the Brighton Bar in Long Branch, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I did see that.
To help support them because they've been going through a rough patch as well. But other than that, there's not a lot going on out there. You can do your own sort of live streaming from home, I suppose, which we haven't really done. We haven't explored that much. But what we have been doing is writing new songs and recording. We recorded about, let's say, 8 or 9 to 10 songs we have. A couple are still in the can. Some we've released. Can't talk this morning. Some we've released, and others are still being worked on. But we've been keeping busy.
Yep, I see that. As far as the recording, I guess you're doing a mix of both, going back and forth online and then also going to the studio, or what's that? How's that?
Well, I think what we decided in the beginning, because in the very beginning of this, when everything was insane in New Jersey, and then New Jersey got hit, it was one of the first hard-hit states. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew what to do. So Henry and I got together. He lives by a beach, and we would get on the boardwalk with our masks and our chairs sitting 6 feet apart, with wind blowing our papers all over the place, and we would try to rehearse that way. But Henry was home, isolated, because he was working from home. He hadn't been around anybody. I hadn't really been around anyone. So we decided, this is crazy. We can't work this way. And we took a chance. We took a chance and went back indoors to his place. And we always do every Sunday. We always get together every Sunday. We call that our writing day. And we
That's nice.
We just started going on as normal. And then my bass player and drummer, they agreed, we all agreed, we all like to get together in the studio and rehearse, because the studio was up in the mountains in Pennsylvania, and it really was kind of an area where there really wasn't a lot of cases at that time. And it's a huge studio, so we had plenty of ample space to be far apart from each other. I would put Lysol wipes around the microphones, and we were just sort of winging it. And how do you get together as a band during COVID? And that worked for us. I mean, we didn't kiss hello, we didn't hug, nothing like that. But then, since we'd all been around each other and we continually rehearsed almost every week, we had all these new songs. And my bass player has a real good studio in his home where he just recorded the Fleshtones' new album. And I said, okay, what do you think about us coming down for a weekend and recording these new songs? So that's what we did. We wanted to keep things going, because you know what happens if you don't keep getting together. Eventually you start to lose the momentum, and we didn't want that to happen. So we just found creative ways to continue going without, things falling apart.
Yeah. No, this has been going for a while, so you just can't stop. Not without repercussions. Nope, I hear you. And you've already kind of answered this. So it's definitely a different world. I talk to some people, and their life hasn't been changed miraculously. But that's interesting. So you guys were religiously getting together like routinely Sundays for the last 10 years or better part of that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, things pop up and
yeah, of course.
Real life kind of gets in the way sometimes. But yeah, that's been our routine. And sometimes we come up with some great stuff, and sometimes we're like still have things that they're still waiting to see the light of day.
No, but that's
right, Henry. Sometimes we end up watching a documentary and we haven't written anything because it's just not there. And other days we can write 2 or 3 songs in one day. Yeah,
we could bang them out. Yep.
No, that's great that you folks have the discipline to do that. And there's going to be, no doubt, there's going to be times when where to come from, and other times where it just ain't there.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. I wrote something down. This is part. Well, if you can translate it into the Cynz, but have you folks made discoveries? And has this translated musically? Have you made discoveries? Because of COVID and the change of lifestyles and all that's evolved. Anything that's translated musically or personally?
Yeah, more so I'm sorry, Henry, go ahead, you go first.
No.
For me, it's been a tremendous life changer in terms of, we had a very successful business, and suddenly we were in a position we never thought that we'd be in, which was, basically going down to nothing and losing our life savings. That was a completely life-altering thing for me. You don't think when you have a successful business that you're ever going to find yourself in a position where your savings are drained. But Henry, you could talk about, your life went through a major change as well.
Well, I think musically, the thing that resulted from COVID for me is that I've got a lot more time to sit down and play and to work out ideas and just listen to more things, getting back to my roots as far as like influences, like music I used to listen to that I haven't had the chance to play in a long time. And it's kind of, I think I've grown a little bit musically. I've been playing guitar for 100 years. I think I'm playing as good as I ever did, or maybe even better.
Yep,
so I
and let me just say, some of the I've listened now and again to you folks, and I've listened in the last couple of days because I've been because of this, and you do some tasty things with the guitar. Let me just make a note of that.
Oh, thank you very much. I think our songwriting has grown over the years as well. But we've never lost our goal to just put out really high energy stuff and keep people dancing. But I think we've grown in some interesting ways. Like our latest recordings are a little bit different from the stuff we used to put out back in the day. Back in the day.
Yeah. Could you which song would you point to as far as different and how so?
I think the one we just released, Face Another Day, is really, really kind of a polished song. Like we used to do some really raw things, and we can still be capable of that. But Face Another Day has very beautiful harmonies in it, and it has like a softer touch, which I really like. And
organ, which Michael Giblin, who produced that song, added. And I thought that added to an immense beauty to it because it's a very soulful song.
Yes, working with Michael Giblin has has been a pretty informative experience. He's been doing a production on our latest tracks, and he's doing a great job. No complaints.
Nice. Yeah, you mentioned time, and it sounds like you're taking advantage of it creatively. You mentioned also going back to your roots. What roots may they be?
A lot of blues. I like Lightning Hopkins, Robert Johnson, and then you move up to like the rhythm blues years, all that jump blues stuff. Louis Jordan. Get out in that kitchen and rattle those pots and pan, stuff like that. And then, of course, there's British Invasion, Beatles, Dave Clark 5, Stones, of course. It runs the gamut. I also listen to jazz, too. Louis Armstrong, and the swing era stuff, even Sinatra.
Yeah. You said jazz, and that opens up a whole different range of possibilities. But if Louis Armstrong kind of fits in with all that you listed, so going, so some interesting options there. What about contemporary? What anything strike you contemporary as far as today's world, or?
Oh boy, there's so many now. I can't even think. I really like listening to Rodney on the Rock on Underground Garage, and he goes out of his way to play like the newest, freshest stuff. And it's just so much talent out there. There's just so many people doing such great things. It's mind-boggling. I'm
a big fan of the Struts. I think the Struts are, for me, the most exciting younger rock bands to come out right now. They're clearly and admittedly influenced by Queen, Led Zeppelin. They're very glam. The front man puts on a tremendous show. Just a very mesmerizing and cool band from England. And right now, they're probably...
And who is this again?
The Struts. They're out of England. Oh, I mean, I can make a suggestion for you to listen to, but like Kiss This, Your Body Talks. They actually did that one live at the Victoria's Secret show, and it was like there's a version of it on YouTube that's tremendous. They're just exciting, and he dresses real like flamboyantly, and his voice is incredible. They started off as real young kids, and now they've been together, for many years, and they sequestered themselves in a house with their engineer during COVID. And they all were tested and, made sure everybody was safe. And then they spent months doing nothing but making music, which is something they haven't been able to ever do because they always tour. And they're coming out with a new album now that is supposed to be the best work they've ever done.
Yep, the result of the last 6 months. Which would never happen. So there are some cool things happening, even or as a result of this nonsense.
Well, you know what happens, Bob? You either find and I keep saying this to Henry. You either find creative ways to move forward, or you just say, okay, we're done. I mean, we don't have clubs to play at right now. We did. I did a couple of things this summer. I did the Johnny Thunders review, which I did with a different band, and that was incredibly strange for me. Jesse Mallin's band was a house band, and you came in at your time that you're given. You came in 5 minutes before, so I drove all the way into the city, walked to the club, was called downstairs, did a song with a band that I'm not used to. Took me 3 minutes to do the song. Then you get off the stage, you leave. You had to bring your own microphone. You didn't get to stay and talk to anybody, get to know anybody. They had masks on. You couldn't even see their faces. It was the strangest experience I've had in 10 years.
Oh,
and it wasn't my band, so it was weird.
How did that go at the end? How did you feel at the end of that whole experience?
I felt it was a learning experience, and it was, I mean, they live streamed the show, and it ended up being a tremendous show, and it was a fundraiser, for the Bowery Electric, which I was all about raising funds for clubs. Then we did the Brighton Bar, which is a New Jersey-based club that's very infamous. And a friend of mine, Greg Macalino, owns that club, and we definitely want to help save that club. We played there many times with many big names.
Yeah.
So we went down, and the band did a live stream. We raised out $500 in one night of a live stream, and that was pretty cool. I think what was important for me this summer was to help raise money for clubs and help save the clubs.
Yeah. No, that is going to be the big thing is what's going to happen. Both of those, the Brighton and Bowery Electric, are two. They need to be there at the end of this. So I do hope that is the case. One thought though, I'm sure that at least you didn't have to hunt too hard for a parking space.
No, well, a lot of places, they put their tables and stuff outdoors. They started doing food.
Yep.
A lot of places that never did food. I think Greg was at home cooking his own Italian food and bringing it there to serve. And so he helped himself together and got through the summer doing that. It wasn't his forte. It wasn't something he ever did before, and he apparently did it quite successfully. So,
that's neat.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. And once the summer came and then the state allowed us to go outdoors, that's what helped us. Now, it wasn't your capacity. It wasn't your full capacity. It was still limited to your parking lot or whatever a sidewalk, whatever you had. It was enough to stay just barely afloat because the state certainly didn't come in and help us.
Yeah, no, I saw what you had done with your place as far as that little alleyway and fixing that up, and you're not going to pack too many in there, but it's at least something.
Yeah, everybody did anything and everything they could.
Yeah,
and the places that had we went to some shows actually that were in parking lots. They made like a makeshift stage. Some of our friends were doing but it had to be more on the acoustic side. And I think in New York City, a lot of our fellow band friends, they were doing acoustic shows in windows so that people left tables and chairs on the sidewalk would see them playing through opened, windows.
All right.
I thought that people did what they could with what they had, and it was pretty creative.
Yeah. Nope. I've seen the various online, and I've seen there's one event that's been almost routinely happening over in one of the parks in the city. I forget which one.
Tompkins Square Park.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So let's transition. Let's move on to the second part, which is has been the last 6 months. Comes up in a couple of minutes, and then the last 10 years. Actually, they feel about the same. Let's see. As far as
they do feel about the same. That's fun.
After 10 years, how do you folks feel after 10 years? After going, it's kind of hard to answer that question, perhaps considering what we've been going through right now. But how about the last 9-10 years? What's your reflections?
For us, it's always been about the creation. I think that the joy in songwriting is seeing how an initial spark or an idea grows into a song. And that's always been a thing of wonderment for at least me, I think for Cyndi as well. We've always been about the creation, the creating and transforming this spark into a rock and roll song. So that's over the years, that's never lost its appeal to me. It's always been a joy. And I think Cyndi might feel the same way, I think.
I've done a lot of creative projects in my life. I was a performance artist. I always did poetry with the band. And Henry has actually uttered these same words. I think for Henry and I, this has been the most satisfying project we've ever done. I would never have believed 10 years ago if you told me this would have lasted for 10 years. At this point of our lives, I would have never believed you. I thought it was just to be a fun little project, for me to grow as an artist, to actually not speak my words, but to sing them and to see if this longtime friend of mine and I could create some songs that might be cool and perform them. Our goal was never for the band to get on radio and make a name for ourselves in New York or to tour in Europe. All those things were completely out of my mind when we started. Everything is a surprise. Everything has been humbling me. Everything has been just an unending source of gratitude because I can't believe that I get to do this every single time I do it.
Yeah, that's true.
In regard to the creative process, and actually both of them are. The first one is recording versus live show. Has that developed? Or feelings towards the one and the other, or any difference, or?
Well, there's big differences between the two, but I think one goes hand in hand with the other. Big difference is obviously, you're playing for an audience, you're getting that energy from them. It's great to rock out on a song and have people like it and clap and dance and go woo. When you're recording, it's a different kind of vibe. You're trying to take a song that you've been working on and bringing it to the studio, showing it to the guys, and then getting the best takes you can. So it's kind of you're kind of approaching it from a different standpoint. Live shows are all about energy, fun, rock and roll, and there's that in the studio also, but it's kind of like on a more subdued level.
Yeah, to me, it's all about alchemy. You go on stage as a front woman. I never wanted to pick up guys used to say, "Oh, why don't you play like this percussion thing or the tambourine?" I guess as a dancer, I love the physical freedom of a live show because I get to get my yayas out. I don't know how else to express that. I can fall to the floor if I want to and scream and let everything out. In the studio, I went in as an amateur. I really did not know a thing about what went on in the studio in terms of, the technological aspects. And early on, I'm a good learner. And early on, I told myself that if I'm going to hang out with the big boys, I need to learn something. I need to pay attention. And anybody that's recorded with me, Henry can tell you this, I sit in the room a lot where the board is, and I watch. And when the guys are saying, well, can you do this? And can you make that a little bit more this or that? I pay attention. I really try to learn something new every time I go in the studio. And I think after 10 years, I've gotten to the point where I can make suggestions and I can say, well, in my own language, since I'm not a musician, I can say, well, I'd like to have this be a little bit louder. Or I'd like the drums to be a little more crispy. I have my own language that Henry gets, which is kind of the problem because he doesn't correct me sometimes, but he understands me. He understands my own little musical language. And I think that I've become a better songwriter and recording artist as a result of making sure I paid attention every time we went into a studio. Live performances just evolve on their own, but in the studio, you have to learn. You have to learn those skills. You got to learn what the engineer is doing. I might not never completely understand it, but I learned enough where I can contribute to that process.
And I'm just a follow-up question. In today's world, audience. There's audience. I guess I'm thinking there's audiences and there's audiences, and unfortunately, the New York club scene. That's something I wanted to. Audiences in New York used to be bigger, and now it's largely musicians playing for musicians. Are you conscious? How much of if you're playing, is that a factor when you're playing at all? Who the audience is, who's in the audience, and so forth. Is that anything on your mind, even just a curiosity?
Henry, can I just say something about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's something that's always been asked of me. I can only speak for the shows that I attend or our shows. I know that back in the day in New York with CBGBs and the other clubs, sometimes the Ramones played to 3 people. You know, they really, in retrospect, everything seems bigger than it really was. There were times when those clubs were packed, sure. But Henry and our band has played, the Sidewalk is one example. We've always played to a packed bar. I mean, they might be small dive bars, but I mean, people come out. We rarely ever played to a very small crowd, and if we did, it would be because the club was just in an area that our New York crowd couldn't get to.
Or it was raining, or there was some kind of natural disaster going on.
Right.
Yeah.
But having said that, the internet has definitely affected whether people are motivated to come out or not, because if you can listen to your favorite bands and watch videos right on your phone, and talk to your friends right on your phone for that matter, why go out? People are becoming a little bit more antisocial as a result of technology. But my experience in my
I was hoping you were going to say the opposite.
No, my experience with our LES crowd has been that our shows tended to be, you know, pretty packed. And the shows I attended of other bands were often very packed.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Sometimes you get an off night. Sometimes I agree with Cyndi. I think people are coming out as much as they ever did, or not coming out as much as they ever did.
Right.
But it's definitely. I also agree with the internet aspect of what Cyndi was saying also. That you can I'm getting tongue-tied here. The streaming that everyone seems to be doing is kind of like another kind of evidence of that. I think, social media, I think, was supposed to, bring everybody together. And it seems like you can, if somebody wants to do a show from their living room, well, that's, people can tune into that if they want. But it doesn't have the same electricity that a live show has.
True.
I'm sorry if I took us off topic, but
no problem at all. Talking about electricity and all that, how free are your shows? I've seen a couple, but how much variation do you have as far as what's recorded and what you put out at a live show?
A lot of older songs that we used to do kind of get left off, like maybe temporarily on the wayside, only because we've kind of got a large body of work right now, and so we tend to favor like our newer songs over the old ones. Of course, we always have a couple old favorites that we keep in the set list, but we try to change it up. We try to do different things. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, you want a 45-minute set. So it's extremely difficult. I mean, I'd say we get 10 to 12 songs a set. 12 would be stretching it. And in that amount of time, when you have 3 albums out plus a handful of singles, it's really, really difficult to play all the songs you want to play. It's like you get on stage, you do your set, you rush off stage so the next band can go. What the clubs do, which I think is tremendously hurtful, I think it only hurts the clubs, is they try to cram in as many bands as they can, thinking each band will bring people. The problem is that you have one really good band, and then you have a band that really isn't not only doesn't match in style. They might not be a very good band. They have a right to play, of course, but people leave. So they see just your band, and they'll be there as bodies drinking while your band's on, and then those bodies leave. And the last thing the bar needs is to have bodies leave. You want as many bodies in that place, drinking your product. And so I think that was one of the biggest mistakes. I remember, Henry, you remember the days when you used to play 2, 3, 4 sets in a night?
Yeah.
And people stayed all night. The ones that come to see your band, if they had longer sets and less bands, I think the clubs would have been more successful, and I've always said that. But they They continued to put on as many bands as they could. The one club that I think did it right was Bowery Electric, because they would put together bands that went together. That
there were stylistically
right,
close.
Like you'd have the Flesh Tones and Michael's band Split Squad, and you'd have just all these bands that came from the same clubs in the same era, and people stayed. They stayed all night, and once you have, say, 10 bodies in a bar, somebody walks by and goes, "Oh, look, there's people in there." Then they come in to see what's going on. And then somebody else walks by and sees 15 bodies in the bar. When your bar is empty and they see people leaving, they're not really...
You got a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, that's an issue that I think is like just you find specifically in the type of like a club type environment where there's a couple different acts. It's different for like shows or like festivals or things like that. Where they do pay a little more attention about the styles of the bands these days.
Yeah, the really big problem, Henry, in the clubs, and this is why clubs are closing right and left in New York besides rent, is you have these promoters that call themselves promoters, and we worked with the one that we liked, but we had experiences with promoters that go on Reverb Nation and they email 100 bands and say, "Okay, here's dates that I have. Who wants to play?" Never heard the bands. And so all they do is the band say, "Okay, I'll take this date," and that promoter walks around to every club that night that he booked bands in, and they collect their money at the door, having done nothing more than made an email. And to me, I think that's disgraceful. And I make sure that I tell people, don't work with this promoter. It's a scam. You need professionals that have been at it, know what they're doing, know the bands, know what the bands sound like, know what the bands draw. Of course, you always want to give some new people a start. That's fair. But you don't want to put 5 bands in that one is like a ska band, one is a punk band, and one is like Billie Eilish. It doesn't work, and you see the club emptying out. If the clubs want to survive, they got to invest in the quality of the nights that they have booked.
Yeah, no, the club's going to suffer too if that, if that's the MO of the promoter. It's not long till they're done.
Right.
But where I was going, what I was trying to ask, I guess, there's a buddy of mine that plays, and he would boast that one of his boasts was he never played the same song identically, at any given time. Every time he played a song, it would be different. And I guess I was just wondering, you have and some bands are proud of that. They, you're going to get the same song pretty much as what's on the album, and so you have those two continuums, or you have that continuum. I was just wondering where you folks like to fall in that continuum between never playing the same song, the same versus playing it. That's what you hear. That's what you're going to get.
I'll let you go first, Henry.
I think that for us it would depend on like how collectively we're all feeling on a given night. If we're all like if we're all having a good day and a good night, or whether there's something going on. The performance could be affected like that. But I mean, we have parts of the songs. We have songs that we've rehearsed and we know, and we kind of stick to the program. I might change up my lead a little bit. Bob may throw a fill in here or there that he didn't normally do. But yeah, we stick to the way we play it. Yeah, because we want to sound, cohesive. We want to sound like a band, like we're playing together. And for our type of music, where it's very energetic, very up tempo, we kind of keep it the way we rehearsed it. Because we want to sound good and we don't want to sound sloppy, and I think that's important.
We're not a jam band, that's for sure. We're kind of more the remote vein of 1, 2, 3, go. 3 minutes later, it's over. You're on to the next one. But I remember going to see I went to go see what's wrong with me? The guy from the Police. What's wrong with me? The lead singer from the Police.
Sting.
Oh my God, I can't believe I couldn't think of that name. This is I'm not.
That's usually me.
So I went to go see Sting, and I was so excited to go see Sting. And I remember him doing a jazz version of Roxanne, which is probably, for me, was one of the first serious punk songs coming from a new band in the 80s. That wasn't actually a punk band, but I mean, they just did this. Roxanne was like so freaking crazy punk at that time, you know? And and he did this jazz version of Roxanne, and it was just freaking awful. It was so boring, I wanted to go to sleep. And I understand, like, you know, creative license to change your songs, but if you loved Roxanne because it was so, like, rash and it was, I mean, he's screaming at Roxanne. You don't have to put out the red light. She was a hooker, you know, like, and he loved her. And then you're doing this jazz slow version, and it's done in this subtle, quiet voice. I hated it. And I always remember that because I never wanted people to love a song of ours that got them on their feet. And then we switch it, and when they came to hear was the song they loved. I mean, it's different if you're the Great Dead and people take, you know, some acid and they're looking to jam out and be in that zone. But I think I hate to use the word bands because, you know, it just sounds so egotistical, but let's just say the followers of our band that come to see us, they like our songs the way they are. They come to hear them the way they are. I don't like too much change live.
I think the fact that we're doing it live is kind of changes it up, because a lot of times what we do in the studio, we might put some instrumentation on the record or the song that isn't normally like one of the pieces of our band. Like we don't have a keyboard player, but we'll do that in the studio to make a nice song. So in that aspect, it is different, and also it's different because it's you performing it in front of people, and the people are responding to you, you know, and it's giving you a boost to really lock in and do it good. So you know, there's some differences there.
Well, there's a lead guitar, Henry, that you do in Quick Fix Man. And I love live. There's this guitar lead where he just it's screaming up and down the guitar. And it's at a point where I just go crazy. I just physically let go. And I always love that lead. And then one day Henry changed it. I'll never forget it. Remember I asked you, I'm like, why did you change? He goes, because I've been doing this for years. I got bored. But I'm like, but why change what works? But I understood it that as an artist, he needs to enjoy his live performance as well. So I'm a creature of habit. Henry's more open to some changes.
Yeah, now that he knows that, he'll have to factor that in.
No. She let me know. She let me know about it already. So.
I'm like, I go crazy for that lead. You're not letting me go crazy.
Yeah, no, that's part of where that question came from. In fact, is how do you navigate that? And nope, just curious what your process is, and where you fall. No right answers here, obviously.
No, because with each person in the band, you have a unique personality and their own ideas on how things should go. And I think that's one of the hardest things about being in a band. It's also a Spinal Tap problem. That everybody's personality is unique and everybody's ego is different, and what goes on live on a stage often results in a lot of bands breaking up. You have to learn to adapt, and you have to learn to compromise, and that's how I think how Henry and I lasted 10 years.
Yeah, which goes to my one question I've been meaning to ask, and it's you and Henry, and has the rest of the band been pretty consistent? Or I was trying to find that out.
Bob was always with us, except for when he had his first grandchild, and he took a break to have family time. Now he has like 5 or 6, so he's, Bob is he doesn't take off any time anymore. He actually is like, I'm taking a break. I'm going to rehearsal. But they have the most beautiful, bunch of grandchildren floating around. They're all adorable. And so we have had to learn as the years go by to adapt to the changes in everybody's lives and the things they're going through. So for us, Bob always had a fill in, and it was waiting for him for when he came back. And we had some great people drumming with us, but it was always Bob. Bass players, we've
had some changes in personnel over the years. It used to be a 5-piece band with 2 guitars, bass, and drums. And then we kind of evolved into just me on guitars, and we found that that was just as effective, if not more so, than having 2 guitars. I think the 2...
It also made it easier to schedule rehearsals.
Yeah.
When you're trying to schedule everybody's lives and everybody's time, it's hard for everyone on the same day.
It's like herding cats sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember that. That part is, yes. And as far as what were the differences as far as having 2 guitars and not? If you have a quick take on that, or?
Well, I think in the earlier days we were looking for I don't know. We thought that more was better, and we were looking for a very a powerful sound. So, and with 2 guitars, you really you get that. Then through one circumstance or another, someone would leave, someone else would come in, and so we kind of thought, well, how would it be if we just if I just did everything? And so we experimented with that, and we tinkered with our sound a little bit, and we found that we were coming across as powerfully with just 1 guitar as we were with 2. So so that's we decided to go forward. And like Cyndi said, it's a lot easier getting everybody in in one place at the same time.
Yep. And instead of 2 guitars, I was reading an article or something recently talking about the value of silence. I forget where in the heck that was, but it recently popped up. Did you discuss? Are you an advocate of such? That sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes less is more. I'm sure you've heard that one before, but I think it's real. There's something to be said for that. And also my playing changed over the years. Where I would share leads and concentrate more on rhythm. Now I'm sort of like going back and forth between leads and rhythms. And what's important too is having a bass player who can, say if I go into a lead, the bass player needs to be there to hold the bottom. And so it's important, I think, to have a bass player who can do that. This is particularly if you're just doing, 1 guitar, 1 bass, drums.
Yep, a 4-piece, a bass player becomes more, they have more options there in that place. And,
I
if
agree.
They have more options, you need a richer, more robust player.
Right.
All right. Let me just see if there's, I guess, I have two silly questions. They're all silly questions. We got 10 years. What are the plans for the next 10 years?
I don't know.
We've never planned this out. This is all we've been taking this day by day for 10 years, and I think we're probably going to keep on doing that and just see where it goes. And so long as it's fun and so long as we're enjoying ourselves and people still like what we do, we're going to hang in there and do it and rock out. Yeah.
My plan is that we don't spontaneously combust on stage.
Yeah.
Assuming that does not happen, you'll continue.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not teens. We're not teenagers.
That's my next question.
Yeah, I mean, as a female, it doesn't matter for the guys. The age thing does not matter for the guys. I think for me, and this is kind of difficult to say because I wish it wasn't so, but it is. Radio, for me, is more interesting because radio only cares about how you sound. And I think as I start heading towards, an older age, I think that I'm going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? I am going to be looked at more for, well, how old is she, than what my talent might be up there. And so I feel the pressure a lot more than the guys do. But I always said, as long as people, want to come see me up there, I don't want to one day be the caricature of what I once was. And I hope that never happens. But I intend to do this as long as I can. I mean, this is what I do. I'm a performer. This is what I do. And to take that away from me, there's really no quality of my life. But I also have a societal pressure on me that no man feels. They're seasoned. An older man is going to be a seasoned performer, whereas an older woman is always judged based on that.
Yeah. Nope. There's definitely some truth there, no doubt. Which brings me, I was pondering I wish I had a different last question, but it is, that's what I got. In 2020, is rock and roll a young man's game?
Mm-hmm. I believe that women are getting more power in that game. Do I think it's a young man's game? No, I think it's a man's game. I think it's in general a man's game. I think men will always be valued for their endurance in the business and their seasoned talent. It's like, look at him. He's what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry about that. But he's endured. He's like a god. He's a guitar god. This guy is like a bass freak. I mean, look at all the old guys that are in the business, and they are just loved and adored and treasured and worshipped. And then you have the older women in the business. Well, she's had work done, or I wonder why she still goes on stage. I think the women of my generation are changing that. Because we're defying that whole thing. We're like, well, and I hate to curse, but we're like, fuck you. I'm getting up there. This is what I do.
Yep.
This is who I am. You got Deborah Harry. God bless her, man. She is really helping this generation by saying, like, I could still rock and roll. As long as I have value, I'm getting up on the stage and doing my thing. I love her for that. Brody Depp came out and did a tour with the Distillers. She looks incredible. I mean, it's not about the looks. She got up there and she did her thing. Yeah. And as long as women of my generation continue to say, F you, we're doing this, and we have value, we still have plenty left to give. And the audiences they're packing them.
Yeah. And that is the essence of rock and roll right there.
That is the essence of rock and roll. And I like to think of myself on a lower scale, of course, as a warrior. We are paving a whole new way for like my daughter's generation. My daughter will now look at the rest of her life and say, well, when my mother was done raising me, look what she did. Yeah. And I'm really glad to do that.
I think also too, but not to interrupt, but look at the Stones. I mean, I think it's a game. I think it's a game to any man or woman who still believes it's a game. Who still has game in the sense that it's fun to do. So long as you have the spirit and the joy, you want to create and you want to go out and do it, then do it. And get out, no matter if you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60.
Don't matter.
It don't matter. It's so long as you feel the rock, and so long as what you're doing is.
You can still roll. If you feel the rock, then you can still roll.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I think we ought to end on that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you making the time though today.
I feel like I get up on that stage and my energy is boundless. I think 20 years ago I was more tired because I was raising a young kid, and it was exhausting, and I had no time to look after myself. I was too busy looking after everybody else. And I feel like now, especially since I've gotten my craft together and my habits and my lifestyle are where they need to be now, I feel like I am probably at my peak. I'm at my best now than I've ever been.
Yep. Yep, I agree.
Cool. Well, I hope that continues on, and we'll make a date 10 years from now to circle back. We'll hopefully do it before that.
Sounds good, Bob.
All right. Well, thank you again.
And that was the Cynz, Cyndi Dawson and Henry Seiz. Thank you again. We thank them again for joining us for that time, and I hope you enjoyed. And I do urge you to check out their music. Again, you can find it on Spotify, iTunes. You can find them on Reverb Nation. You can find them on Facebook. And again, if you're going to type them into your browser, they spell the Cynz with C-Y and Z. Enjoy, and until the next time. Thank you.